would be a pretty big understatement to say I'm not excited about this episode. Hey, it's Romania Black, and guess what? We are on episode 20 of Blue Lock. Oh my god, we only have 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We only have 24 episodes. It's insanity. What is happening? 24 episodes, and so we're down to the last 5, and I'm pretty sure at least 3 or 4 of those episodes are going to be about this final match, because this is it, right? This is it. It's either going to be one of two things. Either Isagi, Barou, Chigiri, and Nagi's team are going to beat Rin and Bachira and the others and gain one of those two. I think it's either Rin or Bachira. Or Rin and Bachira's team's going to win, and they're going to gain one of Isagi's team. So, honestly, though, I feel like if Isagi's team loses, I would like to think Isagi is the one they'll pick to go with them and leave Barou and the others behind. That's what I'm thinking, but it may not be the case. Isagi's team could win. We don't know. But one thing we do know is this is not going to be easy. No, it's not going to be an easy match. I am full-blown this episode expecting Bachira and Rin to come out the gate swinging and being like, oh, well, just because Bachira is the type of person that's like, I love you, Isagi, but I'm not going to go easy on you. You've got to earn it, baby. And so I have a feeling that Bachira is not going to go easy on Isagi. They're going to play them hard, and you can take that how you will. And they're not going to make it easy on him. So that's all there is to it. And it's probably going to be like Darkness Before the Dawn scenario, where this episode's probably going to be real dour, and the next episode will be two until Isagi and them throw it around. But I would say, honestly, episode 17 was really good. Episodes 18 and 19 have been my favorite of the season so far. They have been so much fun, and I've had so much fun discussing them, and I'm really ready to see what this episode gives us. So we'll just have to see, won't we? But yeah, so I've got some comments I want to talk about before we dive into this, though, before we get into this episode. Geen pointed out that the voice actor for Baby Barou back in episode 18 was actually also the voice actress, because usually they have voice actresses play young boy characters. Also plays the voice of young Thorfinn from Vinland Saga, as well as young William James Moriarty from Moriarty the Patriot. And that really surprised me, because even though it's a voice actress playing a younger boy, the younger characters, Thorfinn, Moriarty, and Barou, do not sound the same. So I was like, oh man, she's not only playing a younger boy character, but making them all sound different. So that's really impressive. I thought that was really, really cool. And then Wim had some really interesting comments to talk about. One, I like that's been pointed out that Barou's hair, when it's pointy up, it is a crown. I was like, I like that. Nice. Also, just so happens episode 11 was Isagi's awakening. Episode 18 was Barou's awakening, matching the number on their jersey. So clearly Rin's awakening was episode 1. Right when this all started, right? Right when it all started. Who knows? We'll get Rin's backstory, and his awakening will have happened in the very first episode, and we'll be like, we knew it. We done been new, right? I also thought this was interesting, was that Wim pointed out a translation issue with episode 18, saying that in episode 18, Barou, the streaming subtitles said he was happy to take on the role of the villain, but Wim says that's not the correct translation. Instead, it's just like, I will accept being the role of the villain. So I think that's pretty important, because it's suggesting that Barou is not happy to be the villain. They're not happy they have to alter their dream and trajectory, but they're willing to make that change because that's the next step of their evolution. And I think that's a very important thing to note, especially with Ego's speech and what it talks about. So I thought that was really interesting. If we're talking about Pokemon, Barou, I said Arcanine or Growlithe, but Wim pointed out Nidoking, and I was like, oh yeah, Nidoking, that definitely fits. So that one fits too. And then Bachira would be Pikachu, obviously, which, if you have the Let's Go franchise, you have Let's Go Pikachu for Bachira, Let's Go Eevee for Isagi, it fits perfectly, right? And then speaking of Ego's speech, I like this idea. I'm watching another series right now, and Wim pointed it out in their Patreon comment, but I'm watching this series called Psychopaths right now, And in Psychopaths, I'm not going to spoil it for you. You should watch it. It's amazing. But in that series, there is this through line where in this society, they're trying to eliminate stress to where people don't stress out anymore. But in the process of eliminating stress, it causes people to like not have dreams or ambitions anymore, and they're just kind of like these vegetables. So that's kind of like Ego's speech about despair and stress. He's like, you need stress and you need to feel defeat and have a moment of despair, or you're not going to grow and evolve. You're just going to dream dope and stay in this like stagnant state, and you're never going to change one way or the other. So stress can be something that's really to your benefit. And I thought that was really interesting. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad that's pointed out, right? I thought that was really good to mention. And so, yeah, it's all part of your evolution. So, yeah, really good stuff, right? I thought those were some great comments. I'm super excited. There's been so much fun fan art shared in the Discord. So real quick before we start, a couple things. One, if you are not joining us in the Discord over on Patreon, for $1 you can, and it may be of your benefit because as I am posting this right now, there has been a poll started on the Patreon channel to replace this show. Sadly, we'll be caught up by the end of the month with Blue Lock, and then it will be the sad wait until season 2. So what can we do? But if you want to see, I'm sure by the time this airs on YouTube, the poll will be over, so womp womp. But you can join us on Patreon over in the Discord and talk about Blue Lock with us. We've been sharing a bunch of fan art. It's been a lot of fun. Anytime a new manga chapter comes out, they just black box and I just ignore it. So so it's all good, right? But that's been a lot of fun. And then the other thing is, we can't start this episode without talking about my favorite sports anime. Blue Lock's getting up there. It's getting up there, but it's just shy of meeting with this one. And if you want to know what that series is, well, take a look. It's been hard for the four of us battling as a team. So when we get done with our matches, we like to go watch our favorite sports anime, Ace of the Diamond. Yes, in that series, there's rivalries, there's shipping, there's character development, all the things that four like-minded individuals like us can come to enjoy. Now, all we need is to find our 5th player to complete our team. Oh, I think we found them. Yes, I think they'll fit right in with the crew. Well, when you're done watching Blue Lock, I recommend you go watch Ace of the Diamond and see for yourself what an amazing sports anime it is. Now, back to the reaction. I almost forgot. Not this time, though. Not this time. No, I'm gonna keep it good, right? So, y'all, I am fully preparing myself. I always hate that dread of sports anime where anytime a match is started in this show, they're going to be like, we're going to win. And then it's going to be like, they're going to get the curb stomped. And I'm waiting for the curb stomp. And I'm like, it's darkness before the dawn. I just have to keep that mantra up and tell myself that it's going to be okay. So, let's see how this goes down and if we start this game or not and what ends up happening. But we're going to start episode 20 of Blue Lock. Oh my gosh. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1. And let's do this. I love my dogs the entire time this was going on. We're just running in the background, barking, going a mess. And I was like, well, that seems pretty legit. They were playing soccer and enjoying the fun just like we are. Oh my gosh. Yes, I am all about this match so far. I'm letting Whiteboard Kun take a break this week because I think we overworked Whiteboard Kun last week. They were going through a lot. And plus, honestly, this is a pretty straightforward episode, but it's just the start of the match. It's just setting things up. So we should probably talk about it though. Still, right? We should definitely talk about it. And my dog is trying to play with me and put things out here, but I don't know where they are. So if I like have to bend over and get his stupid toy, we'll do that. He's pretty incessant. So Bachira is having the time of their life. Bachira has nothing to lose in this match. They really don't. Because it's like, on the one hand, the way that Bachira's character is, they are going to be, I think, happy no matter what decision is made. If Bachira's team wins and they take Isagi, well, Done. Win-win. If Bachira teams wins and they don't take Isagi, then Bachira will be like, well, just come and get me again. You know, because he knows Isagi's going to be able to do it, right? He has that faith in him. If the team loses and Bachira gets picked by Isagi's team, well, sure thing. But I don't think at this point that's going to happen. I think that they're going to pick Reen if Isagi's team wins. But here's the thing. I think even if they pick Reen, Isagi's going to be like, look, I have to keep growing. This gloomy Eeyore over here is our best chance of that. Bachira will be like, I get what you're saying. I get what you're throwing down. And I think he'd be fine with that. I think Bachira would be like, okay, fine, let's go. I just feel like Bachira and Isagi's dynamic as a ship is that they are always like, their foreplay is like just yes-anding them and constantly running at each other back and forth and chasing each other. I feel like that's their dynamic. And unlike Reo, who was offended that Nagi chased off after Isagi because Isagi was stronger, Bachira's not offended. Bachira's like, okay, I see what you're throwing down. I'm going to work to match up with that. At least that's the impression that I get of Bachira. So I don't think Bachira's going to be bothered. Toki is a problem. Poor Barou, and I know y'all are thinking like, poor Barou, but poor Barou, he really has no chance right now because Toki is such like, he's like, it's like impenetrable force and immovable wall like meets each other. It's just like two mountains meeting each other and just having gridlock. Because Barou is strong, but Toki is like a big old brontosaurus that cannot move, and that's gonna be Barou's struggle. Barou's struggle is gonna get past Toki, and I don't know if Barou will be able to. He kind of could do a few moves in this episode, but I think Barou and Toki are gonna be stalemated this entire matchup, which if you're the writer of this, that's a pretty clever move, because you're like, yeah, if you don't, Barou had his glory in the last episode. Episode 18 was Barou's thing. Episode 19 was too for the first part. So Barou's had his moment to shine. He's the villain, and now he has to face off against Toki. So I think from a writing standpoint, it makes sense that Barou's got his moment to shine. Now it's Nagi's turn, which is interesting. So Nagi's going to be the one that is going to evolve, which is going to be freaking cool. So Barou's off here with Toki. We don't have to worry about him. Aryu and Chigiri, I think there's still some possibility for some growth and things to happen there with them. We'll talk about that. But I think for the most part, I'm not going to talk a lot about Barou and Toki because they're kind of just at a stalemate this entire time. Although it is funny to see Barou face up against Toki, who's the most polite child, but also needs the most therapy out of everyone in this room. Out of everybody on the court, Toki needs the most therapy. He is mentally unstable, and we need to get this kid off the field and to a therapist stat, because they have so many problems. They're just like, nobody loves me. If they don't pass me the ball, I'm too bold. Forgive me. I'm just useless. I'm like, what the fudge is wrong with you, kid? Get him a therapist. Look, Bachira is my favorite on Rin's team, but Bachira was one of my favorites before this, before he was even on their team. Of the 3 therapy children that need the most mental evaluation, Aryu is my favorite. I freaking love him. He is glam. He is Ray from Free. He is just sitting there being like, he's like Ray from Free meets Zarbon from Dragon Ball Z. He's so glam. He's just like, we're part of the glam fam. I'm like, oh my God, yes! The question is, who else would be part of the glam fam other than Chigiri and Aryu? Is that it? Does Reen's brother get to join the glam fam? I don't know. I don't think anybody else matches, but oh my God, as soon as I kind of predicted that you'd put the 2 ones with the beautiful hair up against one another and Barou and Toki, but the moment he saw Chigiri's hair and he's like, oh, I want to touch it, and Chigiri's like, what the fudge are you doing to my hair? Lost it. Done. Beautiful. I just love how Aryu's like, he's like, oh, can we just play with you, Bachira, and have glam moves, and I'll make some glam passes for you. And what I love is that Bachira is the type that he's kind of like Isagi. He's very adaptable. And he's like, yeah, I'm in this situation. I'm on this team with these guys. We may end up playing together if we all make it to the final 5. So yeah, sure. That's fine with me. What I like about it is, unlike Reo, Bachira is not so hung up on Isagi that he can't compromise and play with other people. Like, Reo really just wanted to play with Nagi. He just was kind of using Chigiri and Kunigami to get to Nagi until that whole thing blew up. But here, Bachira's like, no, I'm going to listen to the monster inside of me, and it is telling me that Isagi is the monster I've been waiting for, but I'm not going to wait around for it. I'm going to play with these other guys, and that's fine. The one who's a sourpuss, the one who I've called him on Discord as the Kiwi, because he is. He's got a little prickly, hard shell, and underneath he's just mushy. But also there's a Maroon 5 song called Kiwi that's very sexual. You can ship Reen with whoever you like to that song. Make all the edits you want. I'm waiting to see them in the Discord. But he's such a sourpuss. Reen's like, let's hurry up and get this over with and go. I'm like, well, look who's too cool for school. Is your espresso waiting on you, sir? Is there a problem? Do you need to go talk to the Olive Garden manager right now because your breadsticks aren't coming fast enough? How about we chill the fuck down, Reen? He's just like, instant kill. Let's go. One hit KO. I don't want to play Mortal Kombat anymore. I'm like, oh my God, Reen. It's almost endearing how over the top he is with being done with everything. He could care. He can care so little that it's over the top. Like I've never met a character that could give as little shits as Reen does. He gives so few shits that it makes it seem like he's a diva. How that is possible, I don't know. But he somehow makes it happen. And I'm like, Reen. But here's the thing. I am a sucker for a tsundere heart that needs to be melted. Barou was a tsundere heart that needed to be melted. Barou was that little bit of butter that needed to be put on top of that steak and melt down and caramelize over the top of it. And Isagi helped him do that. And now Barou is officially in the Isagi harem fan club. Bachira was the president. Bachira founded this whole thing. So he's been there since day one. Nagi, by the end of this episode, becomes part of the Isagi harem. And I was like, well, okay, we're going to talk about that. But I am a sucker for a little butter heart that needs to melt. And Reen's is that butter heart that needs to melt. Reen's little frigid, tepid, lukewarm heart needs to soften up, right? And I feel like that's going to happen. I feel like Reen is going to like kick it into gear next episode because he had the aura coming out. And that's when I think Isagi's going to be like, oh yes, I don't want to devour you when you're, not at your full blast. He's like, I want you to crank up the heat, turn the oven on force 50, and then let me eat you all up. Like we're going to talk about it. I'm so excited. But yeah, Rena's just like instant kill. And Bachira's like, sure. I like that Bachira tries to be. It's so funny because there's like a little moment in this where Bachira's like, he looks like he's trying to be flirty towards Reen, like, okay, sure, let's go. But then it's like, there's just not, to me, chemistry between Reen and Bachira. It literally strikes me as a bromance, and it literally strikes me as Bachira. Bachira would love for Reen's walls to break down, but I don't think Bachira is the one to do it. I don't know. We'll talk about it in this episode. But yeah, they're all going out here, and then I like that Barou's getting his hair ready as he steps onto the field. And then Reen can't help but look very handsome. He has what is his name? Ikuya effect from Free. He has the Ikuya effect, right? And Bachira's like, I'm so excited. Bachira's like, this is great. I'm facing a tough team. We're gonna have fun. It's gonna be great. Right? So then, of course, we have Aryu, the glam fam, with him and Chigiri. And see, here's the thing. I do not ship Aryu and Chigiri. I don't ship them. They're too similar, right? I like my ships to have a little bit of contrast, right? A little bit of opposites attract sort of situation. I do like that. And Aryu and Chigiri, they both look too similar with the glossy hair, and they're both kind of divas. So it's like, no, Chigiri needs Kunigami because Kunigami's like a brick house, and Chigiri's the silk pillows that sit inside the brick house, if you know what I mean. So yeah, yes, I think that you need that. Whereas Aryu, I don't really ship Aryu with anyone, but I'm glad that he's found family members he can relate to. Hopefully when this is all over, Chigiri and him can trade shampooing tips, even though Chigiri's like, I just naturally have this good hair. Aryu's like, I work so hard to maintain my locks. And Chigiri's like, genetics, man. Oh, I love it. It's so great. But also, Chigiri has hair boundaries. And then I like that when Chigiri's like, you have a classical name, Aryu Jubei-san. And he hates the name Jujubee. He hates Jubei. He's like, his first name is not Glam. I like this Harold like comes out and goes crazy. It reminds me of Lovecraft from Bungo Stray Dogs, kind of has that same sort of mentality. He's like, it oozes the unmistakable outdatedness of a warring state samurai. He's like, my first name is such a boomer name. I hate it. I love Aryu so much. He is so much fun. I love his character. Anytime he's on screen and he's just glamming it up for the camera, he just melts my heart and I cannot get enough. Toki just needs therapy. That's all there is to it. I love Aryu doing the glam. He's like, I'm gonna get my energy up. Toki just needs therapy. That's all he needs. He just really needs to like kind of see someone because I'm worried the most about Toki and Barou being the person he's matched up against. I love that he tries to like pull that whole like Toki's like, well, can't we just play another time when we're in a better state? And Barou's like, shut the hell up. And he's like, I love it. I love that Toki is just, he looks like a titan throughout most of this episode. And Barou's like, why do I have to deal with this little negative shit? I love it. He's like, I'm gonna end this super negative shithead. And Isagi's like, okay, sure. So then Nagi's like, look, I want to challenge myself and I want to grow stronger. He's like, I have to do something that excites me. Otherwise, not choosing Reo was pointless. Up until the end of this episode, Barou or Nagi up until the end of this episode was trying to be like, look, Reo, I'm sorry that I'm doing this, but we'll talk about that whole speech that he gives. But it's like, even after everything Reo said, and even after their breakup, at first Nagi's like, I didn't want to break up with you. I didn't want to do this. But if I said I wanted to be on Isagi's team because I wanted a challenge, and I don't keep challenging myself, then me not picking you is going to be a waste, and I am going to be a hypocrite. So he's like, I have to keep challenging myself. So he's like, I need to go against the toughest player here, which is going to be Reen. And I'm like, good for Nagi. And of course, then that pairs up against one another our ship, which is our flagship, Bachira and Isagi. But at this point, other than Chigiri, who's hung up on Kunigami, the other members of the team, as well as Reen, all part of the harem. They're not all part of the harem. It's bound to happen, right? And he's like, I want to go against number one. Reen doesn't care. Reen could not be more bothered. Reen is like, whatever. And then Isagi's like, yep, I'll be the one who devours everything on this field. And he's like, so with that sorted, let's do this, Bachira. I love how confident Isagi is throughout this entire episode. Like, Bachira kind of wavers. Bachira gets really excited. Bachira is very enthusiastic and excited about this match, but I don't know if I would say he's as confident right now as, like, Isagi is. Like, Isagi does have his little moment for a second, and I was like, get yourself out of that hole, because Isagi tends to overthink a little bit, and he doesn't quite see the full picture like Reen does. And he starts to overthink just a hair, and then he pulls it back and like starts to restrain it. And it's like, okay, good. Now we're fine. Good deal. You pulled yourself back. But I love his confidence in this episode. He's like, let's do it, Bachira. And Bachira's like, okay. And so then we have this matchup. Everything's on the line. Yeah, the winner gets to advance. I love how excited Bachira is, and him using all the moves. And a lot of this episode was each team realizing how the other team has grown. Like, Bachira's team realizes how much Nagi and Isagi and Barou and the others have grown, and they in turn realize the amount of compatibility and play that Bachira, Reen, and the others can perform as a team. So this whole episode was just feeling each other out. Literally. They're just feeling each other out, figuring out their pros and cons. That's what this episode was. And then from here on, however many episodes the rest of this game is going to take that foundation and run with it. But I love Isagi being like, he's like, his assessment of the situation is on a whole new level. I just love how proud Bachira and Isagi are of each other, and how proud they are of each other's team, and how excited they are to play one another. It made this match so much fun so far, because it wasn't just like, what I was afraid it was going to be was like last time when Reen's like, you all are plebeians and I'm the best, and this is how I'm not even gonna have to breathe and beat you and blah blah, and it wasn't going to be exciting. But this, the fact that Nagi got Reen's goat and got a move on him, and that frustrated Reen, it's just like that little chip away, melt that heart just a little bit. We got the butter heart on the slab. Now I just got to turn the microwave on. It's like this game was so much fun, and games like that where both teams are so enthusiastic to play one another make me excited. Like, for example, Isagi was reminding me a lot of Kagami from Kuroko's Basketball in this game. I love Kuroko's Basketball, and one of the reasons I love it is because of characters like Kagami. In that series, Kagami is so, like, whenever Kagami is pushed up against a wall and he doesn't know what to do, it's like whenever that happens, he gets excited by the challenge. He doesn't get detoured. He doesn't get, he doesn't get dejected by someone like Barou facing him or somebody like Reen. Instead, he's like, oh my God, I'm playing the best of the best. I want to match up to them and go one step beyond. And Isagi in this episode, as well as Nagi, were giving me those Kagami vibes, and I was living. I was like, yes, that is exactly what I want to see. So yeah. And so then, yeah, they all take on Bachira. They all kind of gang up on him to get the score. And then Reen's like, okay. But Reen is smart. Reen is watching everything this first go around to see how they play, because he knows he can come back and match those goals. I also like how Reen's barrier he has around himself is like this big water ball. It makes me think of Reen as like a mermaid, that he's just like this mermaid or a seahorse or something kind of nautical. That now I want to see him with a little captain's hat on there. He's got a nautical theme, damn it. He needs to be in a ship. He's all but on water. Put Reen in a ship. Let's do this. So, y'all are right. Look, here's my ship tier. Bachira and Isagi are still my top tier ship, right? Right now, Barou and Isagi are floating in second place because of the last couple episodes, but do not put it past that I think that Reen and Isagi can bump up there. We just got to see that devouring happen. It's just not happened yet. And then now Nagi has joined the Isagi harem, which we'll talk about. But it's down fourth because I think Reo and him are still there. And then Chigiri and Isagi are not even in a ship. No, Chigiri's over on the SS Kunigami waiting for it to come into port. So that's not a thing that's happening. And Aryu and Toki are just needing to get on the good ship therapy, and they'll be fine. So yeah, I like that Isagi is thinking about how to match up with Reen. He's trying to figure out what he can do. And I like that he's like, what should I do? And I like that Nagi is taking initiative. Because up until now, Nagi has very much been, you give me the ball and I'll do something with it. But now he's thinking, okay, I can't rely on that and I can't do that. Because everybody on the field is so strong. He's like, I have to do something for myself. I have to take charge. I have to make decisions. I can't wait on somebody to give me the play. I have to make it for myself, which is him evolving. And that's kind of what we're going to be seeing, I think, more of in the next episode. So yeah. So Aryu, it's kind of funny because Chigiri and Aryu, as well as Toki and Barou, they're both kind of at standstills. I feel like this game is going to be mainly about Bachira, Reen, Nagi, and Isagi. Because those four are the ones that are going to have to showcase their skills to bring the team to advance to the next level. I feel like Chigiri and Aryu are kind of at a standstill. I do think that Chigiri is going to have to think up something because Aryu is showing his versatility in this. So Chigiri's going to have to counter that somehow. So I feel like there's going to be something with that. And maybe Barou will find a way to get past Toki and there's something with that. But right now, the way the game sets up, I still feel like Reen's team is a little bit stronger overall. And Isagi's team is the underdog, but stranger things have happened. So I'm not going to put it past Isagi's team to be able to beat them, but it's going to be freaking close, right? It's going to be close. And then I like the super linked up play is between the four of them. I love it. It's great. And then they managed to score. And then I like that we have like Chigiri and Nagi like slapping high fives, and Isagi's like, yes. And then Bachira's like, I've been waiting for you, egoist. It's like the monster inside me is over the moon. He looks freaking rabid. Bachira looks like an animal, just posed there, crouched on the ground. The monster behind him, like Bachira looks feral. Like he's so freaking excited about Isagi being here. But he wants to challenge Isagi even more, so he's gonna spurn Rin on, right? And Rin is like, what the fudge? So yeah, Isagi, I do like how Nagi points out that Isagi is not at the experience level that Rin is. So right now he's always going to be like a little step behind. There has to be a factor that Isagi puts into motion to get past Rin, which is going to be devouring him, which I predict is possibly going to happen in this game, but he's up against Bachira right now, so I don't know how that's going to happen, but we shall see. I do like that Aryu's like, oh, those shots made my heart go a quiver. It's like a quiver. Like, and then later on he was like, such poetry, sheer poetry in motion. I was like, I freaking love Aryu. He's the best. But yeah, but Isagi's like, we're not going to underestimate Rin and his team because they're going to come back and challenge us. I love every time, up until the last of the episode, every time you cut over to Rin, he just looks like he couldn't be like unbothered more. He's just like Isagi's like has this intense close up, and then it goes to Rin and he's like just Eeyore. He's freaking Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. He's just like, I don't know, I guess. Why am I here with you plebeians? What? Just, it's ridiculous. And Bachira's just having so much fun facing them. And here's the thing. Isagi has learned a lot. And he is seeing full motion of the court. I love when Bachira gets the ball around him and he like sticks out the tongue. He's like, I gotcha. That part was really good. But Rin has the experience that Isagi does not. And that makes him just a little step above. Which is why I think that Rin is the one that if they win, Rin's the one that Isagi's going to pick because he wants to learn from Rin. He wants to see how he can become as good as Rin to be up there as a top striker. And that's what you need to do in Blue Lock, right? Do you choose your friends or do you choose your rivals? And in this, I think Isagi's going to choose his rival because he wants to beat him. And you can't blame him, right? That's pretty much what Nagi did. Nagi chose his rival over Rayo. You can't blame him if the goal is to become the best that you can be, right? And I like the idea here that Bachira's like, oh, he's one step ahead. He lured Nagi in. Again, looks so unbothered. But in that time, he's like, I can catch up. But then there's Aryu and the others, right? Like, what's interesting is at one point, Rin looks over to Bachira and he's like, I want you to do this, this, and this. And Bachira's like, yes, sir. Like, it's exactly what Isagi does, essentially. But the thing of it is, Isagi, I don't think, has that confidence to the level that Rin does, where Isagi could be like, I'm going to do this. He's like telling a soldier what to do. He's like a commander on a field, right? Isagi, I don't think is at that point yet, but he could get to that point, right? I feel like that's why he's going to want to study Rin, because they're so similar. Rin is just like the upgraded version of Isagi at this point. But again, Rin doesn't devour people. Rin, what's interesting is they talk about, and I thought about bringing Whiteboard Kun out for this point because this is really interesting, is that Rin is versatility. He's not adaptability. There's a difference. He's versatility. So in that respect, Rin is able to be versatile enough to take on any role he needs to on the court, and he doesn't need anybody, right? Which is so funny because it's sort of the opposite of Isagi. Isagi needs people on the court to devour. You can't devour air. You're going to be hungry. You're not going to grow, right? So it's funny, whereas Rin, what Rin has is the versatility to where he doesn't need anybody on the court. He can act by himself if he needs to. Isagi has adaptability where he can devour anyone on the court and overtake them and strengthen himself by that means. So they're totally opposite in terms of how they use their own powers, but then both of them use like their vision, their understanding of eyes and placement, and like the spatial awareness. They both have so many similarities and differences. I really love it. I love how Isagi and Rin both kind of counter each other, but also compare with one another. It's great. And I could see why Bachira would be like, yeah, I'm good with either. But yeah, it's great. But I love this. He's able to create limitless variations of himself. Rin, a monster that can do that. He doesn't need chemical reactions, right? And that's another contrast. Isagi creates chemical reactions by devouring others. Rin doesn't really need any chemical reactions. He's practiced so much he can do stuff on his own. So yeah, again, I feel like in physicality, Rin is exactly what Ego is looking for in terms of being able to be the best striker on your own. But in terms of playing the field and working with others on a team, then I think Isagi is kind of like more what Ego is wanting too. So we just have to get Isagi and Rin together and see how that goes. Right? I feel like that's what we have to do. I still support Bachira and Isagi as my number one ship, but from this episode, it is very clear that Rin needs his heart melted, and Isagi is that microwave to do it, right? And he's like, you did. He's like, you finally learned how to use your eyes on the field of play, which is nice. Nice for Rin to admit that Isagi has learned something. But he goes, but playing half-baked soccer like that will never make my heart dance. I was like, wait a minute! Dancing boy! Wait a minute! So again, last episode was called Dancing Boy, which we assumed was about Bachira being this character, but I'm like, is Rin the dancing boy? Is he the one that wants someone to make his heart dance? And Bachira's just not cutting it yet. But if Bachira's not cutting it, making Rin's heart dance, maybe Nagi will, maybe Isagi will, maybe both. That line opened up so much possibility for Rin, and I'm like, okay, his heart can be melted. Maybe he wants his heart to melt. Maybe he's been searching all this time for someone to meet up to his standards, and he just hasn't met someone to do that yet, but he sees that Isagi's trying, and he's like, well, good for you, but you're just not there yet. I feel like that's why Rin is also similar to Barou, because Barou was like, well, you don't have the talent. You can't match me. And then Isagi devoured him and was like, yeah, I kind of do. And Barou was like, oh, shit. I'm waiting for the oh, shit moment with Rin. Rin has been so expressionless. I need Rin to show expression. He started to get flustered at the end of this episode, but I need a full-on Barou face breakdown. I need Rin to go insane. I may not want that because I think that'll be terrifying, but I need him to show some, like, major vulnerability, and I think this game he's going to do it, right? So for a split second, Isagi gets mad. He's like, we were so close. And he's like, Rin saw through it. And he's like, if I devour him, I can win. So I'm like, yes, devour Rin. Do it. Take that seahorse, pipe it on down. Let's go. Eat that kiwi. So yeah, he's like, we need to come up with a way to neutralize Rin and take control of the field. And I like that Aryu and Toki are like giving Rin all these compliments, and Rin's like, I don't care. It's like it does not matter. What's interesting is, in this moment, Barou and Chigiri and Nagi are like, oh my gosh, Rin is so good. How can we win against him? Meanwhile, Isagi's like in the fetal position on the ground being like, I have a plan. I love that they just ignore Isagi. They have come to terms with the fact that whenever he's crouching on the ground in thinking puzzle mode, just leave him alone. Let him be. He'll come back in around about 30 seconds. We'll be good to go. Right as rain. He's like off in another world. And then I love that Isagi looks up and he's like, no, I can actually explain how he got past you. And they all are like, oh, can you explain? And then he does. We have like a little mini montage where he explains it. I feel like that could have been cut. I feel like that was a little bit of a recap, but it's fine. Basically telling them about how they lost initiative. He's like, Rin makes us unable to think for ourselves because we're too focused on how to deflect against him that he can see our moves. He's like, he's just playing us at this point. He's getting into our heads, making us double think and second guess ourselves, and that's causing us to not be able to think of in the moment. We're thinking too much of the future that we're not thinking of the present. And we need to like get back here. I like that Nagi's like, look, I don't think my operating system can keep up with this. I'm having some connectivity issues. I love that Nagi's like, I don't totally get on your level, but you guys are smart. You got this figured out. I trust you. And Chigiri's like, I like that Chigiri says, well, but you have to be pretty good if you can detect Rin's plays. And I like that he gives Isagi that little confidence boost, being like, you know, you're pretty good too if you detected this. Now, I got a little worried because I was like, the last thing anybody needs to do during this game is get cocky. That will not go over well, right? He's like, my eyes and my brain are what can stop Reen. And I was like, well, and the fact that you can devour him. Don't forget that. So yeah, they do this counterattack. They go for it. And there's Reen in his bubble of water. And then, of course, Reen, like, sees through his play. He figures out... All Reen has to do is sit there and watch Isagi, like, make his movements on the field. And he's like, okay, that's what you're going to do? Gotcha. And then he goes and takes the ball away. He's able to read it perfectly, right? And just takes it. My movements were part of his calculations. And then he passes to Bachira. And what I love about this is Bachira sees them all evolving on the field. And he's like, I want this to continue. I want us to keep evolving. I want us to keep getting better. I want this game to get harder and harder because that means it'll be more and more fun. So let's go. Let's keep the ideas going. I love that Bachira is trying to match them as well. And it's just this game of how much can we grow to get to the next level. And it's great. I love it. I love that nobody's really dejected in this game. It's just like a chess match. What can we do? How do we counter the other? And then, oh my God, what really surprised me, I like when Aryu gets the ball from Bachira and he's like, a sublime vertical spin, sheer poetry. Him hitting it with his head, I didn't think he'd have the reaction that he did. Like when his face was all bloody and stuff, I'm like, are you not worried about your face getting hurt? I guess that's part of soccer, so no. He was like, it was such a glam move. I guess as long as he doesn't get blood in his hair, he's fine. Face, we can deal with that. But blood in the hair, no, not going to work. But I love that Bachira's like, come on, Aryu, see what I'm doing for you. It's great. I love that they're just all challenging each other, and it's working so good. And Isagi's like, look, he's like, I thought we could win if we stopped Reen, but Bachira's ideas are accelerating the evolution. He's like, no, it's not just Reen we have to worry about, it's everybody else. But then my favorite part is Bachira being excited and being like, my pleasure, this is the game I want. And the moment it cut to Isagi saying, this is the final showdown, what a game, I was like, yes. That's the mentality I want, because previous Isagi would have been overthinking it, would have been being like, oh no, how are we going to win? This time he's like, no, this is awesome. I'm ready for this. We're all at our highest level. We can only keep evolving. Let's just go. We're not at our final stage yet. Let's do this. I live for that. And I'm like, yes, Isagi, yes, please. Love it. Love it to pieces. Am I right? So then we have Nagi. And Nagi's like, Isagi and Reen are going at it, battling for control of the field. And like his like cosmic energy is like, he's about to go Super Saiyan. He reminds me of Trunks from Dragon Ball Z, where it's just all coming out of him. And he's like, and on top of that, we have our hands full just dealing with Reen. And what about the others? But now his ideas are becoming the catalyst. Now his ideas are becoming the catalyst for the top three's chemical reactions. So Bachira kind of becomes like Rayo. It's interesting. Bachira kind of becomes like Rayo, where he's kind of the anchor getting the moves in place for each of them, which is a fascinating position on the field. What's interesting is that the team with, and that's another reason why I don't think that Isagi and them will choose Bachira, because Bachira is proving himself to be kind of like Rayo in being an anchor. And Isagi just said in the last episode, he's like, that doesn't work for us. We don't do that. So I feel like them picking Reen would be the most ideal choice for how they've defined their team so far. As much as it's gonna hurt not having Bachira with them, I don't think they're gonna pick him if they win. And he's like, now they're more than just a team of individual skills. They're seriously strong. I love when Nagi's like, man, oh man, I want to crush him. So then the first thing, so then we have Nagi's conversion to the Isagi ship. But look, this is such a multi-layered moment. I was freaking out during it. I was freaking out. My dogs were freaking out. The neighbors were freaking out. Everyone was freaking out. The first thing Nagi thinks of is Rayo swindling him into playing soccer, right? And he's like, the only reason I can be so fired up is because Rayo introduced me to this world back then. So this is the process of a breakup, right? Because Rayo was kind of like, Rayo and Nagi had their breakup. And I still ship Rayo and Nagi hardcore. I seriously do. But they're going through a time. They need some distance. They need to separate themselves out and figure it all out before coming back together. But Nagi's like, I got into this world because of Rayo. He introduced me to it. But... And then we see Rayo yelling, and he's like, maybe you were right about me. And then he's like, look, I came to Blue Lock to play soccer. I learned defeat. And yes, I changed. You're right, I did change. Defeat has made me a different person. But this part here, when he's like, but I want to get stronger. And at this point, it was like him saying, but I'm getting stronger for you. Do you not get that, Rayo? I joined the team with Isagi to get stronger so that we could keep playing together. He's like, I want to get stronger. And he's like, I'm sorry, Rayo. He's like, I'm sorry I'm not with you. And at this point, I'm like, this is Nagi saying, I want to be in game with you. But for me to be in game with you, I need to go on a soul search. And that soul search is going to be on the SS Isagi Yoichi. And that's just how it has to be. He's like, I eventually want to dock in the port, get on your yacht, and us go away together. But I can't do that unless I get stronger. And I can't get stronger unless I play against the best, which is going to be Isagi and them. And that's basically Isagi's whole thing with Bachira, being like, Bachira, I want to be in game with you. But for me to be on that level, I got to play against the best. And Reen is the best, so I got to pick him. It's just, that's exactly what it is, right? But when he said, I'm sorry I'm not with you, I was like, write this in a letter and mail it to Rayo right now. And then he's like, I'm sorry I'm changing without you. Because he's like, I'm sorry that I'm evolving while you're not here. I'm sorry that it has to be that way. And Isagi's like, let's devour them all. And he's like, I'm sorry I'm fighting alongside Isagi. I was like, oh my God, yes. He's like, look, I know you hate Isagi and you think that he's taken me away, but he's like, I don't understand his version of soccer, but in order to get better, I have to understand it. So that's why I'm here. He's like, look, I gotta, sometimes you gotta go develop yourself, soul search, be in that relationship with the other guy to realize why you want to be in a relationship with the first one. It's like, yeah, so he's like, I'm sorry I'm fighting alongside Isagi. I know you don't like it, but that's just the way it has to be. It's like, he's just like, for now, please, for now, let me do this. Like, I need to get stronger, and this is the only way I know of. It's so good, right? It's so good. And so, yeah, and I like that Nagi, who is smart, he looks around and he's like, look, Isagi's always looking to get a pass from Chigiri. This is how stuff is happening on the court. He's like, but I know that Reen is watching and Reen is figuring out what our moves are because he's smart too. So I've got to find a way to be able to get in the perfect position that even Reen can't predict. And he's like, Barou is buzzing around Chigiri. Use him as a decoy. Let's do that. But Reen can see through it. So then I like that Nagi says, quite frankly, I don't know what these two are saying. Nagi's like, I don't know what they're seeing on the field. They're playing some kind of game of kinky mental chess. I don't get it. That's not my jam. But what I do know is what I can see, and we need some chaos thrown into the mix. He's like, maybe the level of vision they're seeing is the same, but it's the experience. And the reason Isagi can't beat Rin is due to their differences in physical skills. So we see on here, I wanted to see what it was here. There was like a little moment where we got here. So, for example, we have the two little stats lined up. Spatial awareness for both. Both spatial awareness for Isagi and Rin are like the same, right? But in terms of speed and jumping, Rin is better than Isagi. And in terms of acceleration and strength, he's better than Isagi. So Nagi's like, look, they are both spatially aware in the same way, but Rin is an all-round better player than Isagi, so of course he's going to beat him every time. That's just how it is. And I don't know at this point how Isagi is going to devour Rin to change that. I don't know. But Nagi figures it out. And he's like, that's why Isagi can't take that last step yet. So in that case, I'm going to be the final piece. I love this moment where Nagi takes the initiative and he's like, I'm not going to sit around and wait to evolve. He's like, I'm going to be the final piece. I'm going to get in there. I'm going to be the chaos. It reminds me of, again, in Kuroko's basketball, where Kuroko decides that he's like, I need to be a bigger shadow, and that's going to have this effect on the game. Nagi's basically being Kuroko in this moment, and he is becoming the bigger shadow in order to help create enough chaos where the other team won't expect it, right? And I like that Isagi's like trying to figure out that moment, and Reen's like, they both kind of have the same face, and he says, the future of the field you two are envisioning and drawing together. He's like, I'm going to obliterate it. I love that. I love that he's like, you two think you have the whole field figured out. You have all of the plans in motion. I'm going to throw it all down the drain. I'm going to be chaos. I'm going to change it up. You're not going to know what to expect. And Isagi's probably going to try to devour Nagi as well. Why wouldn't he? And I love that moment, Isagi's like, his whole, like, the puzzle goes kaput, and he's like, I gotta refigure it. I gotta reconfigure. What's Nagi doing? I love that moment. That's so good. He's like, come on, try to respond. Don't assume I'm the type of person to stay within your expectations. I'm evolving. Catch up. Figure out what's going on. Oh, him saying that to Isagi? Oh my God. And Chigiri's like, hey, you. And he's like, that's a quick response. I'm within reach for him, but in that case, I'll leave it. Come on, Isagi, read the battlefield, alter it. He's like, so I can score a goal. And I love that his puzzle piece is like rainbow, and has the rainbow like juncture off of it, but he's like, come on, Isagi, catch up. He's like, I'm changing the game, now catch up with me. And that's how we beat him. That's our chemical reaction. Redraw the future of this field in an instant. Oh, and he goes behind Reen. And he's like, oh, he caught up with me. He caught up and read it, if just barely. So in that case, I'm just going to shoot. Or rather, I'll control it. And then, yeah, I love it. He's like the 2-stage fake volley. I love we got a lot of soccer terms in this. There was like daisy kick. There was 2-stage fake volley. There was a couple other terms thrown out. That was really cool. I like that we're getting more like soccer terminology thrown into the mix, right? But oh, that fake out was great, and Reen did not see it coming, and he was like, yeah, that's right. He's like, now I can Isagi can give me the ball and I can respond to it and do it against Reen. Oh, beautiful. And now it's 2-2 and we're tied. Yeah. And I love that Isagi's like, are you a god or something? Like, what just happened? With Isagi, there's no limit to how strong I can get. And it was that line. I was like, oh, we need to have some distance. Reo and Isagi, we got to have some Reo and Nagi got to have some distance. And Nagi needs to spend some time with Isagi because that's going to make him stronger. And then him being like, sorry, Reo. Now that I know how good this feels, I can't go back to how I was before. He's like, I'm sorry, Reo, but I had a taste of the honey and now I want the whole beehive. Oh my God. He's like, I have to be with Isagi now. I've got to join the harem. It's too good to go back. Like, you got to catch up and quit being crusty dusty if you're going to be with me. I'm like, oh my God. There is a part of me that still heavily ships Reo and Nagi, but I'm not opposing this development. I'm not opposing this development at all. I'm not opposing the development of Reen and Isagi at this point because I want it to happen. I want his little butter heart to melt over the steak. Isagi's harem needs to be complete. I'm not opposed to any of this now. I just had to warm up to the idea, right? I like the detail where they draw Aryu still has the marks on his nose, but it's very glam in how it's drawn. And Toki's like, what was that, mister? Why, big glam, that's what. And Bachira's like, they got you, Reen-chan. Do you still think this is half-baked? I love that Bachira's like, is this still a stupid game? Is this not good enough? Is my Isagi not tickling your fancy anymore? And I love that Reen's like, shut up, Bob Cut. Uh-huh. And then he says, I also get fired up when I'm frustrated. Uh-huh. Yeah. I'm like, oh, come on now. You said they weren't worth your time of day. Did we change our tune? Love it. Freaking love it. So then we have the additional time. The additional time that is on here, and it's of Nagi's like day in class, where he basically sleeps through class and Rayo takes all of his notes, which is hilarious. But then we cut to the very end of that, and it's literally the world history test scores. He's second. Rayo is first with a 99, and Nagi is second. And he's like, you're amazing, Rayo. You're in first place. And then Rayo's like, how did you even come in second? And that's the additional time. So basically, Rayo studies really hard. Rayo is not a prodigy. He studies really hard, puts in a lot of work, and gets results from that to an extent. But Nagi is a prodigy, and Nagi very much, again, Kuroko's basketball, reminds me of Murasaki Bara, who doesn't really even have to try, and it just naturally comes to him. He just hasn't fine-tuned. They're all diamonds in the rough, as Ego says. He just hasn't fine-tuned his skills yet. So, oh my god. This was an amazing episode. The SS ship of Blue Lock has sailed. The Isagi harem is taking shape, y'all. And I'm freaking excited about it. So yeah, I can't wait for next week. I can't believe we're already at episode 21, 4-episode warning. Oh, I'm so glad we're getting a season 2, though. I'm not ready for this show to be over by a long shot. By a long shot. So, yeah. But in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below, and I will be back next week with episode 21 of Blue Lock. Bye!